Welcome back to another great learning video. This learning video talks a little bit about cash flow. So what I decided to do was set up a drone company. You know, drones are all the rage, right? You have all kinds of great drones, and there's camera drones and FPV drones and things like that. And so I thought, what would it look like if I went ahead and create a business for this? So I went ahead and created a business plan, created some projected cash flows. And one of the things I thought I would focus on today, besides the cash flow statement, is I would focus on how do we do a goal-seeking exercise and when you might need to do one of these goal-seeking exercises. Let me maximize my screen here. So rather than just show a quick split of what a goal-seeking exercise is, we'll look at what I've done here. So with the drone company, I've looked at the number of drone units, maybe service calls. We're helping people with property evaluation and those kind of things, come up with different kind of revenues we might generate, what kind of expenses we might do. I put some variables over here to the right that need to be adjusted. I made them intentionally high at the moment to make the expenses very high. I'll adjust them downward in a minute. I calculate my gross income. Probably won't have to pay taxes. I'm generating a lot of losses. Imagine the first year will be nothing but losses. But I am deeply concerned about cash flow and how much money I need to get started to do this. So hence, that's the spirit of what I'm doing. I'm building up a rough cash flow and trying to figure out how much money I need to get started with this, to be honest. And the way I did this is I thought, well, I'm going to have to borrow money to get started, but I don't know how much money I'm going to have to borrow. So one of the things I did was I created a year one cash requirements or business loan. I'm just going to hit delete here for a moment. Now you see, without any loan payments, let's say I just had cash to make this work, I am short $340,000. You know, that's the whole thing. When you're short money, employees don't want to come to work because you're not paying them. It never works out good. In fact, I'm pretty sure that's almost a definition of bankruptcy. So with that, let's think about it. Could we just key in here 340,500? No, we're short 23,000. Why is that? The reason that is because when we borrow money, we have to actually pay it back. You know, at the very least, you have to pay interest. If you don't pay interest, you'll have to pay both principal and interest back. So it's affecting your cash flow one way or the other. This is really from a cash flow perspective here. Of course, all CPAs have mercy. I know this statement is nowhere close to GAAP and those kind of things. But you know what? It's a working statement. For perspective, maybe I'm going out trying to find somebody who would be lending me money and saying this is what I'll generate. It might be just fine. Of course, we probably have to have a lot more detail around things to support those arguments. But I wanted to play with a what if analysis. So like, 343, what would that be? 363. Let's just see. You know, you can kind of play with guessing it, but you're still off because every time you increase it, the loan just keeps going up, and it's just because the more money you borrow, the more interest you pay. So you really want to set this to zero. And the way I figured out the deficit was I added up the cash flow, any cash I might have on hand, it's cash on hand, and then I thought about contingency, and I added a contingency of, because you want to make sure you have some cash going into the next year. You just don't want to borrow cash the current year. I put it down here, 25% contingency. That way, at least it'll get me into a quarter of the next year. Now, like I said, I've always intended to changing my parentheses and drawing more income. I made the drone expenses and labor expenses almost equal to 100% of the income. So it's a tricky formula. If you sum it up, you can see here on the bottom right, 258,500. We know that's not really realistic. And when we go over and change these percentages, it will change. But I wanted to just look at a worst case scenario for doing it. So maybe when you were looking at getting that loan, a worst case scenario would be kind of interesting. So I created a cash flow statement here, and you know, just how to play with it, like what would be my loan amount, and I linked the loan amount to this cell here. So I went equals this cell here. If I can play with it, I just wanted to play with it. And then the annual interest rates, now they're a little bit lower now. It's a lot lower nowadays. We can put 5%. Thank goodness, if you can get it. Payments per year, 12 years. Interest rate, number of years, we'll say 10. You maybe get way more on that. Then we'll calculate total interest using the PMT function. You hit the function builder, and you can just put in your functions here, your rate, which is really your interest rate, and then your number of periods, your present value, and those kind of things. And really, those are the three functions that we need, and we'll leave the rest go to assumptions and generality. So let's play with this. Let's play with this. Now we've created a banking loan sheet. We've got it working, a PMT function. We put in those variables. The 5% divided by 12 is 0.42%. The 12 payments a year times 10 years, 120, which are your total payments, or MPER as it goes in the calculation. Your total payment is going to be your total monthly payment in that regard. And then here will be your annual payment, which is just that times 12. So we just kept it very linear in that regard. And let's just have some fun with this model. So the way we do it is we're going to go with goal seeking. We go to goal seeking, we go to data, the easiest way of doing it. You saw me do the what if analysis. That didn't really work. Doing my whole life actually, but really don't need to do that. You can just take goal seek. And then what we want to do is set this deficit. You saw the deficit is how much cash I don't have. I want to make the cash to 0. If I can set this deficit to 0, which includes my contingency, by changing the input cell by year 1 cash requirements, I say okay. And it's a beautiful formula. So it computes it's like a circular reference. It goes in, it updates everything I need to update. I don't have to step through it like multiple times. It's a little more complicated. But what's really nice about this one is it calculates the loan payment based on the information we have here. So you see it's populated now, right? The 367. It was all linked. Beautiful formula. It was linked, came in, populated a loan number. Now I know how much money I need to borrow, what the cost of borrowing that capital is, which is really great. This is a fun Excel exercise. I think it's really good. I like to just have that just keep it on hand, because a lot of times people will be asking what it is, and you might want to do sensitivity analysis and those kind of things. Like this is the worst case scenario. When I check changing things for cash flow purposes, I want to get more money. Nobody's going to let you get away with multiple year losses. All right, maybe drone expenses really aren't 25%, maybe they're 10%, and maybe labor is probably pretty high, let's say 40%. All of a sudden, I'm losing a lot less money, and I went from having a loss to a net profit. That's how you know it works, right? You go back, and all of a sudden I got all kinds of things, depreciation going on, I'm paying taxes, things are getting exciting. But I didn't want to do that because I wanted to have adequate funding. So I wanted my year 1 numbers to really be worst case for funding purposes. It's more strategy for me. I know it's kind of high, but I wanted to make sure I had enough cash from year 1 generating cash into year 2, even if I really thought the expenses were lower in that regard. But that was a simple case. I just wanted to show a goal seek exercise. Also shows a banking formula, which is the payment function, which is a powerful function. You go in. A lot of times when you borrow money, particularly in corporations and startups, sometimes you can get interest-only loans and things like that. That also lowers the cash burden. Those are really great to have in those regards. So there's the PMT function that we had put down here, where you could use IPMT if you could get a interest-only loan. So those of you who are thinking about starting a business, I think my next one's going to be a kayak business, and I'm going to put together a good model for a kayak business. It's just something fun to have. Drones is very entertaining, but I think we can make a lot of money with drones. Maybe we can make a lot of money with high-end fishing kayaks too. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed this video.